A typical micropigmentation treatment would take about a month to get a full result. Here's how it works. When you have done a test patch at first to make sure that you are tolerant of the pigment and to choose the color that's going to look best for your scalp and the areas that you want to cover, you come back and you sit in the chair for anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. If you're just covering the top of your head, it might be more on the 1.5 to 2 hour. If you're doing the whole head, let's say you have a shaved head and you want that perfect shaved head look but a little bit darker, that might take as much as 3 hours. And we apply little tiny dots of pigment. It's irritating, but it's not usually painful for most patients. If it's painful, we can numb you. And then for the next 3 days, you're gonna avoid washing your head, okay? And this is so that you don't wash away the pigment, because this pigment is placed so superficially, it's very shallow, and you have the potential to wash some of that away. So we leave the scalp alone for 3 days, then you can wash as normal, and then you come back in about 10 days later. We repeat this process several times because what we're trying to do in that first session is undershoot. Scalp micropigmentation is not like a tattoo. A tattoo is something that you want to see and have seen. But for scalp micropigmentation, you're trying to be really subtle, and you want this to slowly feather in over time so that it's not an obvious change. That's why it takes 2 or 3 sessions. Now, if you're doing 10 days in between all of those sessions, you can see about 30 days is how long it takes for you to get to that place. Some patients also ask, how long will the pigment last? And that also depends on the individual patient and their goals. If you're somebody who shaves your head and has scalp micropigmentation, and let's say you're in California and you're a surfer and you get out in the sun a lot, that UV light will break down the pigment faster. So maybe you'd come in for a touch-up yearly. Other places where scalp micropigmentation can be particularly useful is anyone who's had any previous hair transplant, whether it's a follicular unit extraction with the little tiny white dots, or if it's a linear excision where somehow that little white line doesn't quite vanish the way that it should. A word on getting a touch-up session. Most patients who come in for a touch-up session really like the way it looks after the touch-up session is done. And here's the reason why. If a small spot of pigment fades very slightly and you put a new crisp dot of pigment right next to it, the faded one looks slightly farther away than the crisp one, which gives you that 3-dimensional effect, which is very desirable for making your hair look filled in.